watching Keepin' It Green. I'm your host, Debbie Klughers, and I have David Benzaquen, the campaigns coordinator for Farm Sanctuary. He's back again. Last time we spoke about the environmental effects of factory farming, but today we're going to go a little bit deeper and talk about actually the effects that the animals are actually enduring on factory farms, which a lot of people might not know about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me again. It was such a pleasure last time, and I'm really happy to be back and do it again.
All the way from Manhattan you drove out.
Easy trip for this cause.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, want to just tell a little bit about your organization and what you guys do, and then we'll go into you know, what the animals are.
Absolutely. Well, Farm Sanctuary is the nation's leading farm animal protection organization. We have over 200,000 members and supporters nationwide, and we were founded in 1986. And since then, we've rescued over 20,000 animals in the last 24 years. Wow. And we've also educated people about the cruelties of factory farming and advocated for people to consume a vegan diet and for changes in how farm animals are treated on factory farms.
Great.
And many people think that farms in this country, they see the image of old McDonald. When they think of farms, they think of, you know, cows and chickens and pigs living communally outside with tons of room to graze and run around.
There may be some of those around, but not factory farms.
Well, almost none. You know, over 99% of animals raised in this country are raised in factory farms.
99%?
Yep.
Wow.
And every year in the United States, 10 billion land animals are raised and slaughtered for food, and billions more fishes. And so when we're choosing what to eat, it makes a huge difference not only on the animals but on our health and the planet as well.
Wow. Interesting. And you have, before we get too into it and I forget, you have a great website.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our website is www.farmsanctuary.org.
And there's so much information on everything you guys do, not just, you know, the treatment of animals, not just the environment, but you talk about education and, you know, political campaigning, and just, it's a great website.
Yep, there are great ways to get involved. Our website's a resource to find out more and also to get involved. It's important for us all to get active in this issue because it affects the animals, it affects our health, it affects the environment, it affects global, you know, world hunger and working conditions, and so we all need to take a stake in this. And you can do that by going to farmsanctuary.org.
Right. Now, which animal would you like to start off with talking about what goes on these farms?
Sure. Well, Farm Sanctuary is very involved in a campaign to ban some of the cruelest factory farming practices. And among these are what we call the confinement systems. Things like battery cages for egg-laying hens, gestation crates for breeding sows, and veal crates for baby calves.
So what is a battery cage? What does that mean?
Well, a battery cage is a wire cage where 6 to 10 chickens are put into one cage, and they each have less than an 8.5 by 11 size sheet of paper to move around for their entire lives.
So it's just a little cage with a...
Yep, it's about that long and that wide, but each chicken has less than a full sheet of paper to walk around in for her entire life.
Wow.
And these are chickens that are raised for eggs. And they're probably one of the most cruelly treated animals on factory farms in America.
And this is indoors and stuffy conditions.
There are barns or sheds, you know, these long metal sheds with over 100,000 chickens kept in these cages where the ammonia level is so high that you can't breathe in there. It's horrendous. And these chickens live like that their whole lives for an entire year until they're slaughtered.
And I've also learned that you know, chickens have a cycle of egg laying, and sometimes, you know, when they've had their cycle, they're kind of forced into another cycle by being starved.
That's right. Well, chickens and egg farms in America are forced to produce many, many more eggs than they're supposed to naturally. And this causes them to get sick much quicker, and they lose so much calcium because of the eggs that they are producing, so their bones are very weak.
Wow.
And after about a year of living in these horrendous conditions, they're slaughtered because they couldn't actually hold themselves up anymore.
So they're
and
not
so they're slaughtered
healthy.
for chicken nuggets and these other things. They're absolutely not healthy.
And so then they're slaughtering them to feed people.
Right, the
cheap
quality meat, like chicken nuggets and other fried chicken products.
We feed children.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. And you mentioned the you were talking about the chickens and the conditions, and I'm sorry. In the battery cages.
Right.
The chickens are treated so badly in these cages, they actually stand on each other, they can't spread their wings or their limbs, they can't turn around or stand up fully because their heads will hit the cages. Many of them become impaled by the wires.
What is the rationale behind this kind of treatment?
Sure. Well, Well, on factory farms, what was bad has become normal. And these animals are kept in these tiny conditions because farmers want to make a profit. And the more animals they can put in as small a space as possible, the more money they can make. But this doesn't take into account the horrendous effects this has on the animals' treatment, on the environment, on our health, because we're eating these sick and diseased and weak animals who shouldn't be in those conditions in the first place. And so it really impacts everything, and it's just for a quick buck. And farmers externalize the costs onto the consumer, onto the public, onto the animals.
You know, and I personally think that, you know, there's like a spiritual aspect of everything. And, you know, I think that the way that something lives and the way that something dies, you know, they may live in these horrendous conditions, but they don't slaughter them in the most humane method. I mean, I've seen some of you brought a video, I don't know exactly what's on it, but, you know, the way that they're slaughtered isn't very humane either. It's really, you know.
Absolutely. Slaughterhouses in America can slit the throats of 4,000 chickens in a minute. And these chickens are they're being treated horrendously. Many of them are scalded alive and defeathered while still conscious, and they're experiencing horrendous cruelty. But we have this power to make such a difference, and that's what I want to focus on, is that you know, these things are happening every day. With 10 billion land animals going through all this cruelty, it's so upsetting. But we can make a difference just by changing what's on the end of our fork.
Exactly, with our dollars.
Every time you sit down to eat, every time you go to the grocery store, you can make a choice that's compassionate, it's good for your health, and it's good for the environment.
And what's with this, you know, free range, and I see on egg cartons it says vegetarian fed hens. Like, what else do they feed them? If they're not, you know, don't hens normally eat a vegetarian diet that's what they should be eating? In
nature, they would.
So they have to put that on the box to let us know what are they eating if they're not. Where it's not listed, what are those guys eating?
Unfortunately, in many factory farms, the chickens are actually fed combinations of sawdust, of plastic derivatives, and of horrendous grains, and also of horrendous quality grains that are filled with pesticides, and also actually the flesh of other animals that had died and weren't slaughtered because they were too sick to be slaughtered for human food, and so they're fed to the animals. And then we're eating that secondhand, so it's very scary.
That doesn't sound quite right.
Absolutely, and those labels are very misleading.
Yes.
Farm Sanctuary has a campaign on our website, farmsanctuary.org, and the campaign is called The Truth Behind Labeling. And we did an extensive report, 71-page report, but we have a summary as well.
Good.
And the report shows that labels like free range and cage-free, humane, and organic, and all these things really don't protect the animals from the most cruel practices. Chickens on farms in this country.
You could put anything you want on the package. Doesn't mean, you know, there's not this overall definition of this one word. I mean.
Right. Well, some of the labels are defined by the government, but most of them are defined by third parties or industry. And so they're using a lot of misleading terms to make us think that they're treated well. Organic has very little to do with how the animals are treated. Natural can be, you know, natural can mean a factory farmed animal. And the conditions that are allowed on these farms are horrendous. I mean, chickens have their toes and their beaks cut off with hot sears with no anesthesia. You know, animals are being castrated by hand, having their tails and their teeth sawed by hand.
There's videos like that people can go on to your website.
That's right.
If they've got the heart to look at them, you know, maybe they want to look at them so that they can feel a passion to stop.
Right, at farmsanctuary.org, you can see all those videos that undercover investigators have gone in and have taken the footage, you know, which these things happen every day. Another thing that happens in the egg industry, and then I want to show the tape from the egg industry, from the chickens, one thing that people don't know is that because the chickens that are raised for eggs are different than the chickens that are raised for meat, because we've bred them in a different way. We've bred meat chickens to grow so fast that they grow to their full growth in 42 days and are slaughtered at that age. They would live in nature to 4 years in the Asian jungles. Here in American factory farms, they're slaughtered at 42 days and they're toppling over because they're so top heavy from all the fat they've been given.
I read that their legs break because they just can't support, they're just not able to support, and their organ systems are all failing because they're just being force-fed. So
that's right.
You know.
And the egg-laying hens are treated so badly and bred to produce so many eggs. Like I said, they use all that calcium, and so they have to be slaughtered after a year, which is still much shorter than their natural lifespan would be. What's even more disturbing is because the male chicks that are born of the egg industry are not growing fast enough to be meat and won't produce eggs, they're all killed at birth. And they're killed through horrendous practices like suffocation and maceration in wood chippers. We actually have footage from a few years ago where we have footage of a factory farm cutting up thousands of baby male chicks right after being born with a wood chipper and throwing them onto, half torn apart onto a field
There's alternatives to that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean,
there's no excuse for cruelty. No matter what we eat, we all agree that there's no excuse for cruelty, and we should all do something about it.
Right.
So
let's watch that. Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
In nature, chickens live in a complex social structure. They have distinct personalities and communicate through various means.